It's up in the air and thrown. It's picked up. There he is to the end zone. He comes down with it. Outrageous, 31 yards. McPherson. And Cincinnati is heading to the Super Bowl. He's got it. Rams are on top.
Welcome back to the channel. Today we've got a Super Bowl preview. I don't know which Super Bowl, probably Super Bowl 9000. It's been so many. Joining me today is the resident Wrestle Plug legend, Aeron Nix. It's an honor again to have you on the show. First of all, how much are you looking forward to Sunday's game?
Mate, like, I love the NFL. Everybody who knows me, I'm always banging on about it, at the wrestling, at the football. No, I'm big on the NFL. Obviously, you know, my team are shite. So the Broncos, they ain't making another Super Bowl since number 50. It's going to be a while. Got a new head coach. So, but I'm one of those people, I still enjoy it. Like, you know, I can watch any American football and have a good time. And this is the pinnacle of that. This is the Super Bowl. This is quite legitimately the biggest game in all of American sports. Like, the NBA Championship is great. The World Series is great too. The Stanley Cup, they're all fantastic. But nothing quite has the pageantry and the spectacle and the sheer level of adrenaline that the Super Bowl does. So, yeah, no, I'm ready for it, mate. I'm ready for it. Like, it's been a good season. This is the first season when they've added, you know, another game, an extra week as well. And a lot of us were kind of dubious about that, thinking, you know, that's going to put a lot of pressure on players and things like that. And to be honest, it's shined, and it's made for a much better playoff format as well, having that extra couple of games as well. Like, the playoffs were really intense, highly competitive, and here we are at the back end with, let's be real, like, at least one of these two teams, not many people would have had down as a Super Bowl contender. And to be real, probably neither of them when you consider the strength of the competition in the playoffs. So, you know, here we are with the Rams and the Bengals, mate. Are you even remotely surprised or shocked at the Super Bowl and the two teams that have made it?
Well, I'm definitely surprised that the Bengals made it. I had them maybe penciled in as an outsider for a playoff position at the start of the season. They did get a bit of luck. You know, there was a lot of injuries on the Steelers and on the Ravens as well. But, you know, they rode the momentum, came into the playoffs on good form. And, you know, they grinded out wins in the postseason. You obviously had the 7-point win against the Raiders. You had the really tight, gritty outfit showing against the Titans. And then you had the big game against the Chiefs, where I feel like, as I said, I feel like the Chiefs threw it away. But, yeah, on the Rams side, I thought they were more likely than the Bengals to get to, you know, the Super Bowl, even though they're in a tough division. I felt like they were probably one of the picks, probably with the Packers as well. But I thought they were one of the stronger teams in the NFC. So I'm not too surprised to see them there. It's just the way they got there, which is a bit more surprising in my book.
Yeah, the Rams kind of, like, the Rams clearly on paper are, I would say, are the favorites for this. And they have a great outfit and a great franchise. And I love Matthew Stafford. I loved him at the Lions. And it was always a case of, here's a guy who's so good, but he's saddled with a lot of crap. Like, it was just, that's the way it is. Like, the Lions are a bad franchise. They make bad decisions. And if you're a good player, even with a high IQ, you can't overcome bad management. And that's exactly what happened at the Detroit Lions for Matthew Stafford. All of a sudden, he tips up here. You know, they do the big swap. Jared Goff, nowhere to be seen. Case in point, good management, good coaching is important. People saying that, you know, players make the team. That can be the case sometimes. You know, it can work in reverse. Brady leaves the Patriots. We're all thinking, how's he going to do without Bill Belichick? Just fine, it turns out. I mean, to be fair, Bruce Arian, the way that they do things at Tampa Bay, you know, fantastic. And he got them a chip, and obviously he retired this year. It's kind of sad, and it's kind of weird in a way not to have Brady in this Super Bowl. But then on the flip side of things, it's great to see fresh teams, and it's great to see the Bengals in there in particular, because there is this kind of mentality of, you know, it's got to be one of the big teams, got to be one of the favorites. I'm thrilled because as a Broncos fan, I can't tolerate the Chiefs. You know, I've got nothing against the Chiefs, great football outfit, and it's clear that Pat Mahomes is a absolutely world-class talent, but I think he's overblown a little bit, and I think they're desperate, absolutely desperate to crown him as, you know, the next Tom Brady. This is the guy, and he probably is. You know, in retrospect, when you look at Rodgers, obviously, you know, barreling home towards 40 at the moment as well, and he's just won the MVP, to be fair. You know, Pat Mahomes very much is the next kind of superstar of this league, but he's got a long way to go to be thrown in there, as far as I'm concerned, with a guy like Brady who won 7 Super Bowls, or even someone like, you know, someone of a sort of lower standing, even someone like a John Elway who won 2 Super Bowls with the Broncos. He hasn't done that yet either. So, you know, and there's a lot of greats in between that and everyone that's come before, you know, the Terry Bradshaws of the world and things like that. He's no doubt a better athlete than a lot of these guys, but chips speak volumes. And let's be honest, there's only one thing that matters. It is the Super Bowl ring. Who do you think's winning?
For me, I've got the Rams. It's really a case of whether their defense can put pressure on, how effective their defense can be against that offensive line. We've obviously seen the struggles that the Bengals offensive line have had in the playoffs, and I think obviously they've got to tailor the game plan towards protecting that offensive line more than protecting the quarterback. Because I think if they can give the offensive line a few schemes where they're not really having to face that much defensive pressure, some quick passes, some runs to the outside, maybe stuff to maybe get the players in a bit of space, get the skilled players in a bit of space, bit of early space as well. I feel like that's the way that Cincinnati are going to have to attack, because if Joe Burrow is going to have to sit in the pocket and look for throws, he's going to end up on the floor more times than not, and he's going to end up making mistakes because these guys haven't been protecting him well enough the whole season. And to be honest, at a point, it has been slightly a miracle that they've made it this far. You know, he's come off an injury and they've managed to make it this far. But yeah, the Rams defense.
The pass rush is crucial for LA, you know, and they've got Von Miller, and I know all about Von Miller, you know, big 58, did wonders for us, Super Bowl winner with us, certifiable Hall of Fame candidate when he gets the opportunity. You know he's going in. Him and Donald, and it just, you know, Jalen Ramsey, a cornerback, you know, he's star-studded, but they're not all hype. You know, they're not, you know, all sizzle and no steak. These are legitimately world-class players at that position, the best at that position. And the thing is, their pass rush is the most dangerous and the most vaunted in the NFL. And, you know, the offensive line for the Bengals has had a real hard time protecting Burrow. I think it was the Raiders, got to him 7 or 8 times. You know, it was Sack City up in there. And all right, some of the hits were a little bit softer or whatever, but you know, this is a team that with that pass rush is going to abuse Burrow if they have the opportunity. But that being said, he seems relentless. And the one thing I will say is he does so well under pressure, particularly in the pocket, because he's just so used to scrambling around. He's made lemonade out of lemons, hasn't he? You know, let's be real. And I have to be honest, I'm kind of swept up in it. I think the Bengals win by 3. I do. I think that they have enough on the offensive side of things in terms of weapons. You know, guys like Chase, you know, that's crucial. Mixon has been a real revelation this season. But then again, you could say that about the Rams. The Rams have the best all-round offensive weapon in the league. You know, the Triple Crown winner, Cooper Kupp, and he is just lights out, like lightning. And you know, and he's on the same team as Odell Beckham Jr. And the fact that Odell Beckham Jr. is basically just a guy speaks volumes about, well, maybe his mentality, but also how well the Rams have been set up. And, you know, people are obviously looking at the coaching. I think both coaches have done well, but Sean McVay, we're talking about a guy who, I think he's only ever lost once when he's led at the half. So, you know, he's got everything at his potential. The one thing that does interest me, though, is that Stafford isn't immune to the pass rush either. And like, for instance, San Francisco, they were able to get to him and they made it very difficult. And it became very tight in the championship game. And very much the same with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. How quickly we could have said, hey, here's Brady and his swan song, because, you know, they pulled it right back and it took a last gasp field goal to get out of Dodge in Tampa Bay. And that was like the signature win. But after watching that, San Francisco had a great identity. San Francisco as well went to Green Bay and absolutely smothered Green Bay. They, you know, nothing. What I've noticed is that all these teams, despite how powerful their offense can be, there have been teams that have shown a platform and shown a kind of blueprint as to how to defeat this. And if I'm, you know, anyone from the Bengals head coaching staff, I'm sitting down and I'm meticulously watching San Francisco and how they were able to stifle that offense. I'm particularly watching, you know, even the Raiders. You know, like you said, last minute, we could be talking about the Raiders here and thinking, holy cow, that's an even bigger upset when you think about it. But the reason I like the Bengals is because of that never say die attitude, and because they consistently have to play against, you know, the best, or at least more consistently excellent teams, better divisional matchups. That is the most ferocious and gritty division in the NFL, the AFC North. Having to deal with the Steelers and the history that comes with that, and some of the best coaching in the entire league in Mike Tomlin. Then you've got the Ravens, who can be so explosive, although Lamar Jackson, you know, injuries, like you said. And then, of course, the Cleveland Browns, okay, tailed back slightly, but you know that in a divisional game, they are going to come for you and they are going to work hard. And to be fair, the Browns have improved no end as a franchise all round. I just like the Bengals, I do. And I think for me, the pinnacle of my argument will be that they went into Arrowhead and beat the Chiefs. And you can say the Chiefs threw it away, but if the Chiefs and Pat Mahomes are basically the second coming of Jesus, like I keep fucking hearing whenever I switch on the AFC West, well, ultimately, Joe Burrow went in there and slapped Pat Mahomes in the mouth and took his chip out of his hands. So, you know, and that must hurt no end for all the sponsorships and everybody included, because they are desperate for Pat Mahomes to be in the Super Bowl every single year. Well, he ain't in this one. And I would argue that Josh Allen really should be the guy representing in this Super Bowl for the AFC, but he's not. I think that's a real disappointment in itself. But I'm going with the Bengals, mate. Anything you want to add about it?
Yeah, we'll just be like a good drug dealer and look at the lines for the game. So we'll start with the points. It's currently set at 48.5. Kind of a middling one. Usually very tight games.
Yeah, that's on the fence.
Yeah, I'm on the fence here for the over. I think it will be very close to this total. I don't think it will be a proper low scoring game. I don't think it'll be in the 30s, but I reckon around 44 to maybe 52. It'll be in that region. I think it will start cagey. I think I've got the second quarter to where the game's going to actually, come alive. I think it'll be very cagey. I can see maybe a 3-3 in the first quarter, and then maybe a few touchdowns going into half. Yeah, I do like the over just in this one, but only just for me.
Yeah, I obsess, much like yourself, over numbers. And one thing that really fascinated me was how even a lot of the numbers were. So I basically went out of my way to find stats and look at them anyway. And I'm really fascinated by it anyway. I think one of the big reasons people ask me, they say, why do you like American football? I think it's because you're able to kind of comb through very meticulously all these different things. With our football, it's such a simplistic and raw brand. And that works really well. That's why it's the biggest sport in the world. And its international appeal is amazing. But with American football, it really feels like the thinking man's sport a lot of the time, similar to baseball as well. America, it's funny because obviously Americans have this kind of reputation for being, dumbing things down for whatever reason. I don't really understand that. I don't think that's necessarily true. And it's certainly not true with their sports because of the sheer statistics and the amount of numbers that are involved here. They obsess over things like passer ratings and stuff like that. And every single stat that's important in the NFL, everything that we now look to in such a statistics-based environment seems to lend itself to, it's a pick-up. Like passer rating, Joe Burrow and Matthew Stafford, there is a 0.1 differential between the two in terms of their passer rating when they're in the pocket. 112.1 to 112. Like literally, you couldn't fit a credit card in that gap, which is ironic because you were talking about lines. Under pressure, 89.6 passer rating, for Joe Burrow, and it's 80.1 for Matthew Stafford. When they're blitzed, it's slightly more in favor of Stafford, 131.5 passer rating. But Burrow, right, he's got 120.2 passer rating when he gets blitzed. That's world class, and yet Stafford's putting up 11 more. And you look at that and you think, holy cow! We should be in for a high scoring game because these guys are able to evade the pocket. They're able to, escape the pocket. They're able to evade the pass rush. But Joe Burrow gets hit more. He gets hit more. Now, if he can avoid getting hit, which is very difficult when Donald and Miller are literally looking to pick your pocket and more, then, if he can avoid them, like I say, we've got ourselves a really special encounter. But can he avoid them? That's the thing. These are not your average pass rushers. These are quite literally assassins. These are some of the most dangerous men walking the earth, other than, of course, the legendary Juice that you mentioned earlier. Coaching as well, same kind of deal. Sean McVay, Zach Taylor. If you look at their tendencies to call a play based on the down or based on the score and things like that, like Zach Taylor is very, very he calls his plays very much based on his down. So, he might go for it more on fourth. He might, base his decision more on positioning. Whereas I've noticed with McVay and the Rams coaches, he tends to make his choices based on the score. So if he feels that they need that extra 2 points, he'll go for the two. If he feels that the margin's tight, he won't necessarily rely on a field goal as the length and breadth of the distance of how the teams work at the end of it. He likes to create distance. And I've noticed that the Rams have struggled to create distance in the score in the playoffs. That's one thing that does seem to stand out to me. When the one time they did was against the Buccaneers, you think, this is becoming a blowout. And then all of a sudden, they just started making ludicrous mistakes. They completely tuned out mentally. If they do that here, they'll get punished. And also, question for you, do you think being the second ever team to play in the Super Bowl that is also hosted in their stadium, because obviously they've got a home field advantage, do you think that adds more pressure to them, or is that an advantage?
I'm not quite sure with the Rams because it was a bit different with the Buccaneers. Obviously, the Rams are a team where you do get a lot of visiting fans taking over the stadium. Obviously, they were a bit concerned playing San Francisco with the influx of a lot of San Francisco fans into the stadium. So it'd be very interesting to see how many fans there are, how many Bengal fans there are in the stadium. I think for me, there will be a lot of pressure on the Rams, even with it being in their own stadium. I don't think that adds pressure. I think there's a lot of pressure on them. Matthew Stafford ain't, he ain't a spring chicken. He's getting on in age. This might be his one and only chance to win a Super Bowl. Obviously, Odell Beckham's getting on a bit. you know, this might be one of his last shots. You know, even though he's shown how competent he is as a quarterback. There's 10, 12 fantastic quarterbacks in the league, top tier quarterbacks, and only two of them make the Super Bowl. And sometimes it's not even an elite quarterback who makes the Super Bowl. You know, you've had Jimmy Garoppolo make the Super Bowl, and he's more of a game manager than an actual, you know, MVP caliber quarterback. So, as I said, it's not always, you know, the teams with the best players or the teams with the best quarterback that end up, you know, in the Super Bowl. It's a lot about luck, a lot about planning, a lot about, you know, execution and stuff like that. And at the end of the day, in the playoffs, you know, you've got the grind of the regular season, you know, and that's where I think quality shows, you know, a bit more. But for me, I don't think there's added pressure with being at home. I think it's just should be a lot of pressure on the Rams, and for me, if they can hold their nerve, they've got a good chance. If not, I think this game, as you mentioned, this game is one that's going to be really based on mistakes. To be honest, I think mistakes are going to be. I don't think moments of magic, because I think there'll be moments of magic, but I think mistakes, whoever makes the least mistakes will win this game.
Yeah, I mean, like, one of the things, it's funny, like, you could talk ad nauseum about, you know, the different things that can make a difference, but it does come down to something as simple as who's making mistakes, who isn't. You know, the team that makes the mistake, the team that, you know, has the fewest turnovers is going to be the favorite and is most likely going to win. And people say, well, that's bleedingly obvious. Well, there's a reason for that, because that is normally the case. And so you then look at the quarterbacks and see, okay, who is more likely to throw a pick? Out of the running backs or the receivers, who's more likely to fumble the ball? You know, little things like that. The one thing that does jump out to me a little bit, it's a smaller discrepancy than most, is the fact that the Bengals are able to spread the offense a bit better. Like, if you look at the Rams, right, it is basically Cooper Kupp or bust to a certain degree. I know people will say, oh, Odell Beckham Jr. has got 6 touchdowns. That's great and all, but he's Odell Beckham Jr. He should have more. I know he's also a small sample size. He hasn't played as many games, but Cooper Kupp has, 20 touchdowns? But the thing is, people are so, you know, enamored with the yardage and the numbers there. But the reality is that Mixon has 16 touchdowns for the Bengals, and you know he's only 4 behind Cooper Kupp, despite amassing 500 yards less of offense. Like, yeah, that's great if you can get 250 yards of offense, but is that counting for anything? Or is that just a lot of yardage that maybe leads into a field goal? Yeah, great. Obviously, from a fantasy standpoint, which again is such a big deal, if you're an American fan especially, that's world class. And if you had Cooper Kupp, congratulations. Because if you didn't win your fantasy league and you had Cooper Kupp, well, you must have had fucking Bill Goldberg playing a quarterback. Because I don't see how you could potentially lose. But for me, I'm more fascinated by the spread of offense, because Jamar Chase has 14 touchdowns for the Bengals. Whereas if you look at the Rams, the second most touchdowns is Darrell Henderson with 8. Again, running game, a little bit soft for the Rams, in my opinion, compared to that dual threat kind of mentality. Because Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase, you know, obviously Chase is more sort of classified as a running back, I'd like to think. You know, I mean, it's up for grabs, I suppose. I mean, well, actually, Chase is a wide receiver and it's Mixon. Mixon, weirdly enough, is kind of considered the running back. But I've seen Mixon go, you know, deep threat so many times. That's the big versatility difference to me. If you take Cooper Kupp out of the equation, it's very obvious what the jobs are for the running backs and the wide receivers for the Rams. Whereas I look at Mixon and I look at Chase, even someone like T. Higgins, these are guys that can do both jobs really well. And I've noticed this is a more reoccurring theme in modern American football, especially in the last 6 or 7 seasons. the teams that have players that are able to kind of play in a dual personality like that tend to do more and tend to be more successful at the back end of the season. It's actually one of the big reasons I believe that the Green Bay Packers can't get over the hurdle and keep balling like they do. Because if you look at their weapons, they're good weapons, but they're only good at that one thing. They don't have versatility. Devontae Adams, wonderful wide receiver, not really going to give you much yardage from a running perspective. But not that he's meant to, obviously. But like even Leonard Fournette, at the Buccaneers, there is that ability to kind of just break out in the backfield or catch a ball and work his way down the field using the running game. You've got to have good hands in terms of holding onto the ball, but also catching it, regardless of what position you play in on the offense. And we're seeing more and more of that duality, dual threat. And, I don't know. The more I talk about it, the more I'm convinced that the Bengals are going to steal this. I think they're going to win by 3 points.
So we're just going to go through at the end. You've obviously made your pick, but we're going to go with who do you think's going to be the MVP of the game to round off the show?
It's always the quarterback, more often than not. I think Joe Burrow is going to be the MVP here. I think bearing in mind, what is this, like his second season? That's scary. Like he's got a lot of potential. It's funny. Everyone's coronated Pat Mahomes as the greatest thing on earth. And here comes Joe Burrow, even younger, thinking, let me just kick that door in and remind you that a lot of us are back here. We're hungry. We're ready. And he went into Arrowhead, like I said, and gave Pat Mahomes a kicking on his own turf. He pulled his pants down. He made him look silly in front of everybody, in front of his family. You've got to be impressed by that. And I think Burrow probably walks away with the MVP because if the Bengals are going to win, he's going to be the guy who's going to have to sit there. And to be fair, he's going to probably earn it as well because like we've mentioned, the pass rush, with Von Miller and Aaron Donalds looking to quite literally skin you alive, I think that if Burrow is going to avoid that, still get 300 plus yards on offense and throw for touchdowns, I think he deserves to be an MVP, especially if he wins the game under that level of pressure.
He was also fantastic in Home Alone as well as a kid.
Yes, he was. Was.
So that rounds it up. Thank you very much.
What about you?
I don't know. I think if the Rams win, I don't actually think Matt Stafford actually wins the MVP if they win. I think Aaron Donald, if the Rams win, I think he'll be the MVP. I think for me, it's more of the Rams defense will be the key if they win. And I do think they'll win. And I do see your points. I think you make a valid argument. And I do think it will be a very close game between two very good teams. And as you said, if Joe Burrow can have success against the defense, they've got pretty much a lot. Sorry, mincing my words there, mince pies. They've got a fighter's chance of winning this match. I'm not counting them out at all. I think they've got a very good chance, but I do see if that, Rams defense has success against Joe Burrow, I think they will win. I think they'll win a tight one by 4 points.
Yeah, no, it's probably good for the viewing spectacle that we have different picks. Obviously, you gotta have conviction in what you choose. But yeah, no, I'm always going to roll with the team that knocks off Pat Mahomes and makes Kansas look silly because I am just a little bit tired. And people are going to say that's divisional bias because you're a Broncos fan. Yeah, to a certain degree it is, but it is also a fact of, it's very difficult to enjoy, just the out and out favorites all the time. I know a lot of people say, you just got to sit back and enjoy watching a Pat Mahomes. But the funny thing is that Brady is, iconically hated for being great. And I can guarantee you in 10, 15 years' time, we'll have the same discussions about Pat Mahomes. He'll have won a few Super Bowls. He'll be the best player in the NFL, and he'll be universally hated for somewhat dominating the game. And the funny thing is, it translates to every sport. Michael Schumacher, viscerally hated in Formula One because he was just so unbelievably better than everybody else that it got boring. We're now seeing that with Lewis Hamilton, in F1 as well. Tiger Woods, same kind of behavior. People hated Jordan. All right, Chicago, basically thinks he's God. But I'll tell you what, anyone outside of Chicago will tell you, if they're truly being honest, fuck Michael Jordan, because he was just so much better than everybody else. And I think both quarterbacks in this game have the potential to go down as great all-time world-class quarterbacks. Stafford is one of those guys where you think, he's always been great. Now he's got the infrastructure around it. But like you say, how long is he going to be able to enjoy that? So Burrow, on the other hand, in his 20s, young, healthy, to a certain degree, although he certainly won't be if he keeps taking sacks like he does. He's got the potential, and he's got the chance to pull the trigger right now. And he could already jump ahead of a guy like Lamar Jackson, who might be a natural athlete and a freak of nature, but he's also quite a low IQ quarterback, in my opinion, Lamar Jackson. Very explosive. Take away his running game, however, he's quite a bog standard quarterback, in my opinion. And he's now becoming injury prone because, well, frankly, he's getting the shite kicked out of him. So, for these guys, they got to strike while the iron is hot. Joe Burrow wants to immediately set his stall out as one of the next big things. And with Matthew Stafford, he's probably sitting there thinking, how long are we going to be able to keep this defense together? How long are we going to be able to hold on to guys like Cooper Kupp? Because he's going to be wanting a contract extension. He's going to be wanting big money. And the salary cap doesn't afford you the ability to just retain teams like this without severely making handicaps in other places. You've got to make holes elsewhere to kind of complement these guys. So it should be a fantastic spectacle. I hope it's over the point margin, because you want to see it, don't you? But that being said, the Rams are an exciting team to watch, even on defense. So they might stifle the score, but you're still going to enjoy watching Big Von Miller come off the side, especially that left-hand side, looking to massacre somebody. And you pointed out Aaron Donald being the MVP. Let's not forget Super Bowl 50. I remember it well. Von Miller was a linebacker, and he won the Super Bowl, and rightfully so, because he abused Cam Newton in that Super Bowl. So, even though I feel like the Bengals might just pick this one out, I absolutely love the idea of Aaron Donald picking up an MVP in the Super Bowl, because that would pretty much solidify him as one of the greatest defensive players to walk this earth.
Absolutely agree. So that is the end of the show. We always tell you to like, subscribe, leave a comment on who you think's going to win.
Do it.
Yep. And we'll see you in the next one.